Mom is having a hard time living off her pension. We who can still work should help her out, shouldn't we? During the inheritance discussion after their father's death, Billy, the second son, spoke seriously to his brother and sister-in-law, but it seemed his words didn't affect them at all. Just because she only has her pension doesn't mean we should give her our money, his brother said. Exactly, or does our mother-in-law plan to take our money? Added the sister-in-law. The oldest son and his wife looked at me with expressions like they had tasted something bitter. It wasn't the look one should give their parents. Stop trying to leech off us. It's a nuisance. The pensioner should keep to herself, except for weddings and funerals. The sister-in-law snapped. Hey, that's enough. Billy scolded them. But I was looking down, clenching my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband's death, but they also complained about the inheritance and called me a parasite. I must have raised him wrong. I couldn't stand it anymore. Told the eldest son and his wife calmly, I understand what you're saying. Let's sever our ties. My name is Catherine. I will be turning 65 this year. I am currently living with my retired husband, who is kind and considerate. We have supported each other for a long time and were blessed with 2 children, Dan and Billy, both of whom are now married. Recently, our house has been showing its age, so we plan to renovate it. We thought it would be nice to live with our eldest son, Dan, and his wife, Rebecca, once the renovations were done, so I contacted Dan. We're planning to renovate soon. Would you consider moving in with us? I asked over the phone. Dan clearly showed his reluctance. Living together. Can you spare me? Rebecca won't like it either. But if we're going to renovate, I want to prepare a room for you guys too. I explained. That's for your convenience, right? If you have so much money that you can afford to renovate, then you can give us some of that money. I'll take it. Dan replied. I could even hear Rebecca saying, living together is seriously impossible. I see. Let's forget about this conversation. The eldest son and his wife are always like this. For some reason, they always act superior and display a cold attitude toward us. After I hung up the phone, I told my husband exactly how Dan and his wife felt. My husband looked a bit sad but spoke cheerfully. Can't be helped. For our old age, let's just make the renovations for accessibility so we can live by ourselves. Following that, our home was remodeled as we wished and transformed into a house with a barrier-free design. Several months after the renovation was completed, we planned to have a meal with both our eldest son and his wife and our second son and his wife. First to arrive was our second son, Billy, and his wife, Anne. Anne is a thoughtful person. As soon as she handed me a hostess gift, she came to the kitchen to help me. Mother-in-law, you are always so good at cooking. Oh, thank you. I'm grateful for your help. Anne? As we were chatting, the eldest son and his wife arrived. They sat heavily on the sofa and demanded tea. Seeing me preparing it, Rebecca and Dan spoke in an irritated manner. Really, they have no consideration. Exactly. We are guests here. Hurry up. As I was about to place the tea in front of them silently, Billy approached Dan from the side. Dan, can't you do at least that much by yourself? You shut up. Dan snapped. I sighed. Billy and his wife are kind to us, but even towards Billy, Dan was overbearing. However, the reason we called these siblings this time was because there was an important matter to discuss. The dinner party started, and Dan, who was eating grumpily, spoke up. Hey, Dad, since you called us here, you must have some business, right? Spit it out. My husband looked at me, and I gave a small nod. The truth is, it has been found that I have lung cancer. Billy and his wife looked genuinely surprised, but the eldest son and his wife's expressions didn't change much. Dad, cancer. What's the current situation? Billy asked. I'm going to be hospitalized starting next week, but they told me the cancer has spread all over my body and I've got about 6 months left. That can't be, Billy murmured, clearly upset. Dan muttered, well, that sucks, as if it was someone else's business. Rebecca chimed in, well, you can't beat age, right? My uncle quickly passed away from stomach cancer too. Her thoughtless words irritated me, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Would you two just stop it? Catherine, it's fine. My husband calmed me down and began to speak quietly, looking at his children. I want you guys to look after your mother after I'm gone. Of course, Dad, we'll take care of Mom, so don't worry. Billy responded firmly, yes, please think about your own health, father-in-law, and added. The eldest son and his wife, however, were both playing with their cell phones, not listening to their father's words at all. After finishing the meal, everyone started to leave. Since the eldest son and his wife left quickly, I went outside to see off the second son and his wife. Mom, I know it's tough, but hang in there. We will also help, of course. Please let us know anything. Thank you, Billy. With such conversation, I saw the second son and his wife off. My husband preferred palliative care over surgery and chemotherapy, so he was admitted to a hospice the following week. I started visiting the hospice almost every day, and Billy and his wife would drive me and help take care of him. However, no matter how much I called, the eldest son and his wife never visited. Then about 5 months later, my husband's condition worsened, and I called the eldest son and his wife, telling them this might be the end. They appeared reluctantly. However, Dan neither held his hand nor said a word to him. Instead, they only stared at my frail husband as if he were some repulsive sight. We've shown our faces. Isn't that enough? We have things to take care of, so we'll be going now. The elder couple left the hospital room abruptly, not even 10 minutes after their arrival. As soon as they left, I noticed Rebecca had forgotten her jacket. I quickly rushed after them. As I approached the staircase leading to the hallway, I saw them slowly descending the stairs, engrossed in their conversation and unaware of my presence. It really seems like Dad's time is coming. Huh? What's going to happen to the inheritance when father-in-law is gone? Rebecca asked. Dan smiled at Rebecca's question. Dad was just a regular employee, but Mom and the rest have been living pretty comfortably lately, haven't they? Maybe they've been playing the stock market or something. We could probably expect a decent inheritance. Ha. Oh, I can't wait. I've been wanting to go on an overseas trip. I also want a designer handbag. All we can do now is wait for things to wrap up, Rebecca added. I teared up listening to their conversation. I couldn't possibly tell my husband about this. Unable to confront them, I silently returned to the hospital room. 2 weeks later, my husband passed away. I stayed by his side for a long time, but Billy and his wife were there comforting me. Thanks to their support, I was able to hold it together, and the funeral went smoothly. As soon as the funeral was over and only family remained, Dan, unable to contain his impatience, brought up the topic of Dad's inheritance. What the hell, Dan? We just had the funeral today. Billy immediately reprimanded him, but Dan only glared back. You, the second son, just shut up. Dan snapped. With a sigh, I spoke up. We'll arrange a meeting to discuss the inheritance next week. For today, please just go home. At these words, the elder couple grumbled and then promptly left. The following week, the cheerful elder couple and the serious younger couple arrived at our home for the inheritance meeting. I told the two couples in front of me. First off, I should mention that your father's inheritance amounts to about $30,000. What? Dan looked flabbergasted. I'd like to split this as per legal inheritance shares, with me taking half and each of you getting a quarter. Wait, hold on. Are you sure there's only $30,000? Dan persisted. I handed him a thick envelope. All the documents aren't in here. Please check them. After looking through the documents, Dan and Rebecca's faces contorted in frustration. Damn, Dad was really strapped, huh? So we're only getting $7,500 each. That's too little. If it's this low, give us the house too. At the clearly dissatisfied couple, Billy responded in an angry tone. Our mother is still living in that house. Don't care. It's because you wasted money on renovations that we're left with nothing. Dan retorted, That's right. If the inheritance is this small, give us the house too. I calmly told the irritated couple, This house was painstakingly renovated by your father so we could live here in our old age. I won't just hand it over. I'll keep it as long as I live. What? It's not fair for you to keep everything to yourself. Dan glared at me, his fury palpable. Billy, restrain him, I urged. Billy held Dan back. Your father was worried about me till the end. You might not understand it, Dan, he said softly, looking at me who was still stirred up. Mom, we're going to renounce our inheritance. You should take our part too. Dad would rest easy knowing that. Anne, his wife, nodded beside him. Billy, there's no need to worry, I said. Dan and Rebecca interjected again. If they don't want to give their part to us, we'll gladly take it. That's impossible. Mom's living on her pension. It's tough. We who are working should be supporting her. Billy sincerely scolded his older brother and his wife, but his words didn't seem to affect them at all. Wouldn't you say support? Just because she's only got her pension doesn't mean we can just give our money away. Dan scoffed. Exactly. Or perhaps mother-in-law was planning to siphon off our money from the beginning? Rebecca added. They looked at me with expressions as if they had just chewed on a bitter bug, their eyes not the kind one should direct at a parent. Stop behaving like a parasite. It's a nuisance. Old ladies living on pensions should keep out of everything except for weddings and funerals. Just stay quiet. Hey, stop it now. Billy scolded them, but I had my head down and was clenching my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband's death, but they also complained about the inheritance and even called me a parasite. I wondered where I had gone wrong in raising him. Tears welled up in my eyes with regret, but I couldn't lose my composure here. I gathered my feelings and said very calmly to Dan and Rebecca, I understand what you're saying. Let's sever our ties. When I said that, the older couple looked surprised for a moment, but quickly broke into a smirk. Really? That's the best news I've heard. Does this mean we don't have to deal with the old lady anymore? Lucky. As Dan and Rebecca hurried to leave, they sarcastically called out to Billy and his wife. So there you have it. You guys look after the old lady. Good luck taking care of the parasite. Dan and Rebecca sneered as they stormed out. Billy and his wife rushed over to me. Mom, are you okay? They're just too awful. Billy said, Mother-in-law, we are always by your side. Please don't be upset. Anne added, I was still looking down, but I raised my face and looked straight at the two of them. Billy and Anne, I have something to tell you. A few months later, while I was relaxing at home, Dan and Rebecca appeared with Billy. What's going on? We've severed our ties, haven't we? I asked. Hey, old lady, we need to talk. Dan shouted from the entrance, his face flushed red. Billy spoke with an apologetic tone. Sorry, Mom. They asked about the house, and I couldn't help but tell them. That's fine. For now, everyone, please come in. I let them into the house. The moment they were in the living room, the eldest couple began to raise their voices. What do you mean you're giving the house to Billy? Exactly. You're disregarding us? The eldest couple. What's that all about? Looking at the two of them, I spoke in a calm and composed manner. Billy said he would maintain the house and preserve your father's memories. That's why I decided to leave it to him. What? What do you mean? Dan stared at me, taken aback. Billy and Anne have been a great support to me. It's only natural. I smiled warmly at the apologetic-looking younger couple. Thank you, Mom. Billy said. We're not here to hear that. You said you'd take over the house yourself, didn't you? Dan demanded. After taking a quick glance at Rebecca, who looked like she was about to froth at the mouth, I explained, I thought I'd hand it over to someone who would respect your father and my wishes. Besides, I've started getting some rental income. What? What is this? Dan exclaimed, surprised. Remember how last year my father, your grandfather, passed away? Billy attended the funeral, but you couldn't because you were out of town. Remember? That was, Dan stammered. Your grandfather was a landlord who owned several buildings and apartments. Finally, the inheritance has been settled, and I've started receiving rental income. The eldest couple's faces looked as if they had been hit by a bolt from the blue. We never heard anything about that, Rebecca said. I never mentioned it, I replied. Hey, about that rental income, how much are we talking about? Dan asked, suddenly interested. It's about $3 million a year, so it's easy for me to give one of the houses to my adorable son and his wife. Dan and Rebecca sprang to their feet energetically. Wait, hold on a minute. If Billy and his wife get one, then we should. Why should I split my assets with someone who called me a parasite? Wasn't it you who told me to stay away? Well, if you're going to call me a parasite, then please don't leech off me. With sharp words, I cut off Dan and Rebecca as they began to stutter in response. I glared at them both and pointed to the door. All right, the conversation is over. Please go home now. Wait, hold on, Mom. Please listen to me. Dan approached me, flustered, and suddenly clung to my arm. I looked at him with a cold gaze. You have no right to call me Mom. Please, you can't expect to receive any of the house or money. We're struggling. The eldest daughter-in-law pleaded loudly. I looked at them and spoke sharply, struggling. What do you mean? Dan hesitated but started to explain. We thought we'd get Dad's inheritance and live a bit too luxuriously, and while we kind of got into debt. I forcefully shook off Dan's arm. I'm disgusted. I didn't think you could be this irresponsible. This is the bed you've made, so you need to lie in it. Anne? Mom, that's just too cruel, Rebecca protested. With a final say to the upset faces of the eldest couple, I declared, from now on, I'll transfer my assets to Billy while I'm still alive. I won't give a penny to you who cut ties with me. Please never bother us again. Billy stood up to the crestfallen eldest couple. If you understand, then go home quickly. Don't come near Mom or us ever again. Billy showed the deflated couple out the door. He returned to me, rubbing my back as I still breathed heavily. After that, the eldest couple apparently ended up bankrupt after getting into debt, trying to repay their existing debts from their rundown apartment. It was said you could hear Dan and Rebecca arguing night after night. For them who couldn't manage this simple act of cherishing their family, a decent future probably isn't in the cards. As for me, since I passed the house on to Billy, I bought and moved into an apartment nearby that comes with caregiving services. Billy and his wife often come by to visit, and they've recently had an adorable baby. I want to continue building a good relationship with Billy's family and cherish each and every day.